up, guys? It's Jelly Knees and Skifter. Welcome to the Community Corner. We're sorry that there were some technical issues, but we're here now. We're happy to be here. And we've already got some Rickrolls going in the chat. So clearly it's time to get going here. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to start with some Q&A with you guys answering questions. We have some set up. If you guys have any, put them in the chat. Then we're going to go through the Community Corner, some of the topics we have prepared for you. And then at the very end, we'll have another opportunity for a Q&A as well. So to kick things off, Skifter, will slows stack in Ethereal, or will only the stronger version of the slow get applied? How is that going to work?
So yeah, it'll be diminishing returns. So if you get applied with like 2 slows, the stronger one will go first, and then the second one will be... So like if you get a 50% slow and then another 50% slow, it'll be 50% plus 50% of the 50%.
Okay, 50% of the 50%.
So 75 total.
50%.
Yeah.
Perfect. So they'll be stacking to an extent, but it'll be diminishing returns on multiple slows there. Shad with a great question in the chat.
Great question.
Skifter still hiding in bushes? Yes,
no.
He is.
Don't lie to them. I burned all the bushes, okay?
All the bushes. Just remove them off the map, no big deal.
I just burned them, all of them.
All right. Well, guys, like I said, make sure you put any questions you have about the game or balance or anything like that in the chat. We're happy to go through as many as we possibly can. But another one we have that somebody mentioned in the community Discord is whether or not spells will go through portals. So if you're on Void Lane shooting a portal through into Fire Lane, shooting an ability through a portal, will that ability actually go through the portal to travel through? How is that going to work, Skifter?
Basically, no. The only thing that's allowed to go through the portals is... So any projectile, like if you Dante ult, or I guess Dante ult's not even a projectile. If you throw Dante's grenade, it's just going to hit the wall and bounce off. So
okay.
Yeah, myths and minions are the only thing. Well, shouldn't even say that. Any non-ability did. So myths, minions, if you can somehow drag a jungle camp, they'll go through.
I want to see it. When you guys get your hands on the game, I want to see you guys drag a jungle camp through
some way, somehow.
Portal,
good luck, have fun.
Into a base, something along those lines. Absolutely.
Yeah, all that stuff can go through.
Then will Ethereal be releasing on any kind of platform like Steam or Epic Games Store, or what's the plan in terms of a client for Ethereal?
So right now we actually have our own client. We have our own downloader, we have our own patcher, we have our own client. We are going to be separate from Steam. We will not be on Steam. So our download will be independent. I believe it will be through the website. Once you have like an account and access and all that stuff, then you will be allowed to download it from the website, and there will be an installer and the whole nine.
Okay, perfect. There's a question I see in chat about the Ethereal NFTs that we released back in June. Those NFTs will actually... The tie-in that they have to the game is if you own those NFTs, you will have a unique profile icon for your game. So you'll be able to go in and have an animated profile icon of the NFT itself that you'll be able to use in game and kind of show off that you have those NFTs.
And it'll be tied directly to your wallet. So if you get rid of it at some point, then it won't be there anymore.
Absolutely.
Or if you gain one, then it'll show up.
And Dormant hidden on something maybe a little early. Who knows? That a random rampage rock through a portal. I don't know. What we might have to talk about that in a little bit there. So
too early.
Skifter, a big one for the community is consoles. Where are we at? What's the feeling on a console release? What's going to go on there, and all that good stuff?
So, console will come eventually. We're focusing on PC. We want to get the PC game version stable. And we will probably look at a console release, I believe, beta was said before.
Okay.
Ish, somewhere around then. But yeah, we'll get through pre-alpha, alpha, and then hopefully by beta, we can start looking at consoles.
Okay, perfect. And then there's a question in the chat about having a graphical overhaul, that the map kind of looks a little dated in there. And there's actually, I'll tease a little bit of something for you guys. There is a different group of changes coming to the map relatively soon that you guys will start hearing about. So you'll see a huge change in terms of what that looks like pretty quickly here in the next couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Also, but we won't tease anything too soon.
Yeah, we can't give too much details.
We
got other stuff we got to tease in this community corner. But Shad, for the status of the mocap, That's something that is supposed to still show up this month, being the 29th. We'll hopefully it's supposed to show up this weekend, and then we can get started on all of those mocap animations and get all those new animations in the game. Probably a lot of those animations won't be in the pre-alpha right when it releases, but as many as we can get in there, we're absolutely going to push and get as high quality animations in the game as possible.
Because we do still have the new characters that are going to be coming out, the next 7 that will need polishing and stuff like that as well.
Exactly.
A lot more than just the 7 that is going to be on release.
All right. And then there will be a Sky Jungle for Sky Junglers to interact with in the future. I remember that being a thing a long time ago. So, Skifter, what's the status on a Sky Jungle? I know that's many years ago at this point that we've talked about
out the window.
Sky Jungle existing. So there's not going to be any kind of Sky Jungle?
No. So the reason being was we didn't want any specific gold income to be tied to a specific class. Okay. Otherwise, you know, when we get 6 Sky Slayers, it's just going to be all Sky Slayers trying to fight for this extra gold that you can funnel into those characters. And it'd just be this weird economy thing where if you don't have a Sky Slayer, you're trolling. So having this weird area where only one type of one class of character can get gold was weird.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a good concept, but it got.
There's always the potential that things can be implemented in the future once maybe a balance option is opened up to other people. So like if the Sky Jungle was accessible by more people, maybe we could figure something out. But for now, it just doesn't exist. And then how will voice lines work through a VGS system or a ping system or automatic pings due to like encounters or wards or all that kind of stuff? Will there be myth voice lines mixed in with that? Will it be an announcer voice instead? What do we think we're gonna see there?
Actually not sure, to be honest. I don't recall.
I mean, we have plenty of myth voice lines, so there's always the potential that maybe myths will be voicing those call outs, but we'll have to wait and see as that system gets implemented later down the line. If you guys haven't seen the previous community corner, after this, go and watch that. We actually talk about the ping system a little bit there and explain when we're expecting to see that in the game and how it's going to work and all of those good things. But I think for now, Skifter, let's transition into the meat and potatoes of the community corner we have today. And the first big thing we have is the item changes that went up on the website last week. Mm-hmm. So the items, there were a lot of changes we did to the items in terms of like economy changes and balance changes across the board. But
passive the first changes.
The first one we kind of want to talk about is the artifacts. So the artifacts were actually removed from the game entirely for the moment because they were just in an unbalanceable place. For those of you that don't know, the artifacts were items that mostly supports would be building that could give stats in AoE to their allies around them or weaken enemies in AoE around them as well. So what this meant was that for an item that needed to be affordable for supports, it gave out a lot more stats than it cost in terms of gold. So when you're looking at the item, trying to balance it from a gold efficiency standpoint, it was almost impossible to do so because once you added 2 myths into the aura, the gold efficiency shot up through the roof and absolutely destroyed any sense of balance for these items. So we wanted to go in, remove them temporarily, rework the entire tree of items, and then implement it at a later time with some different elements in there, but kind of keeping the identity of what the artifacts were supposed to be as well.
Yeah, and balanceable elements, not elements that are just going to be broken on release. It's like, okay, well, like why?
Exactly. We don't want every laner to be building an artifact because it just is inherently insane in terms of giving the stats and all those things.
Yeah, because then it incentivizes a death ball meta, and that on release is not gonna. It would not be fun. So let's not do that.
I completely agree with you. And so, Skifter, the next one we're going to talk about is the bows. What did we do to the bows to kind of bring those in a better state?
So yeah, each of the bows has a third stat now. When we initially released all the information about the items, the bows are pretty much just attack speed. And the problem with that is that they're all the same stats with different passives, and they didn't feel unique enough. So what we did is we went through all the bows, and in that rebalance, we gave all of the bows a third stat that kind of fits along with what the passive is going to want to. For example, we gave Thunder Bowblade some movement speed, and if some of you may know, the passive, every crit you land, you get movement speed. So we just gave it some native movement speed. So yeah, we kind of went and added those third stats to give the bows some unique identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something we heard from the community a lot, was talking about the bows, how they're almost all the same. The difference is the passive. And we don't want that to be the case. We don't want you to just decide, I have to build any bow and then base it off of the passive that you want as well. We want you to say, okay, I really want a bow. I want attack speed, crit, and lifesteal. So then you build Medusa String. And then as a reward, you get the passive of Medusa String as well. So we wanted to
stun.
Exactly. Oh, and that stun is absolutely insane.
Kind of broken, maybe, potentially.
Oh, see, D-Biggs, thank you so much, dude. Our art team does such a good job on these
it's so good.
Item arts, all the art in general. Good. But it's just being able to see it in its glory here, I think really shows what they can do. And yeah, huge shout out to the art team there.
There's so much detail in the item art. It's actually insane.
Absolutely.
So good.
The next thing we want to talk about is the starting items that we implemented. So the first of which being Bloody Claw. So Bloody Claw and the starting items in general, what we wanted to do is have them be options for myths to start out to kind of change up the playstyle from minute 1 of the game. So we added items that are meant for bruisers, some that are for marksmen, some that are for mages, some for the kind of the kind of middle ground of all of those things. We wanted to give them a variety of options to start the game with, instead of just giving them a tier 1 item and calling it a day. So the first one is going to be a bruiser item for us, which is Bloody Claw. What it does is it gives you the bloody bonus as a passive. So in addition to some of the stats you'll have a passive that is giving you physical power for every 5% of your missing health. So the lower health you are, the higher damage you're going to be able to do to somebody. So if you're a bruiser that excels in just dueling people early on, and you get to that low health state, that could be just enough to push you over the edge and take on that enemy laner. So just providing more options like that from the beginning of the game to give a little more variety is really what the whole point of the starting items were. The second one we have is Broken Pocket Watch. Broken Pocket Watch is that every 25 seconds, your next ability is going to cost no mana. So this is somebody that is high mana cost in terms of their abilities, but wants to be able to still get them out and poke as effectively as possible. So we've got the no ability cost, so your cost no mana. In addition, you'll be able to do slightly more damage to minions with your basic attacks, trying to help keep you a little bit more in the fight with what's going on. The third item we have is Epic Hat for marksman, most likely, but it really could go on any number of myths. And Epic Hat gives you the Hat Trick passive, which gives you just 3% flat Omnivamp. So that's physical and magical lifesteal. So you'll be able to stay in lane, sustain a little bit longer, and then it also gives you that deal 5 extra damage to minions passive as well. Our next one is Lucky Coin. Now this is kind of the flip side of the coin, pun intended, for the marksman items. And I had to. I'm jelly knees.
Funny guy.
So Lucky Coin is going to be that if you're really confident in your farming ability and you go into lane with that confidence, you can build Lucky Coin as your starting item. What you do is you get the lucky number passive. When you kill minions, you get extra gold just by killing them. And after killing a certain amount and getting 150 bonus gold, you get a burst of gold and you gain a permanent 5% movement speed bonus. So that's after the item is even sold, you get to hang on to that movement speed and that burst of gold that you received. But you lose out on that sustainability that you would get from taking Epic Hat instead. So it's that give and take of what you are confident enough doing in those lanes. Then finally, we have Regrowing Moss, which is kind of our tank starter. You can take Regrowing Moss if you're expecting to be poked a lot from your enemy laner. This will be an item you can go through, and when you take damage, you're going to regenerate a percentage of your health, or a certain amount of health, up to the amount of health you're missing. So you'll be able to sustain a little bit longer in lane where you know that you're better later game than your enemy laner. You just want to take this to be a little safe. And I lied, that wasn't the last one. We've got one more, and that's Unending Chalice, which is basically our mage starting item, one of the core ones between this and Broken Pocket Watch. Is that when you cast an ability, you'll be able to gain mana back. basically like refunding some mana on a cooldown for those abilities. Help you spam abilities out there, and will increase that amount based on the amount of missing mana you have. So the less you have, the more you get from this starting item. Just adding a little bit of variety in there. Now, in addition to these starting items, we added just generic tier 3 items. And Skifter, go ahead and talk about the first one, is Luna's Charm.
Yeah. Okay. So Luna's Charm is the 4th charm in the tree. As some of you may recall, we only had 3 tier 3s before, so now we have 4. This one's gonna be more towards like magic power users, so Noxus specifically in this case. It's going to, every time you hit an ability, you actually have to hit the ability, not cast. You hit the ability. You get a stack. The stack gives you magical power and movement speed. When you're max stacks, which I believe is 5, the next ability you hit will deal bonus damage and consume all the stacks. So it's like a kind of charge up thing. So it's going to charge up, gain magical power, and then last burst. And the burst of damage does scale with the magical power that you gained from the stack as well. There was definitely like a lack of cooldown and magic power items that felt bursty for Noxus, so this was added to fill in that sort of gap.
Okay, perfect. And actually, Mangoose has a great question about how this item would work with Noxus specifically. Of does each tick or instance of damage from her Lightbound Portal, does that proc multiple stacks of this, or is it per cast of the ability?
I'm not sure. It should be cast, but it might not.
Okay.
It should be cast.
So
it will be cast.
on the ability cast itself.
I'll have to look. Yeah.
Should be on the ability cast
it'll be
itself
one per cast.
that you're getting the stack. So we'll talk about Noxus's queue in a minute here about changes to that. But it'll be per instance of ability cast that you'll earn a stack of Luna's Charm. And then what's the next item, Skifter?
Okay, so the next item is going to be Mark of the Arcane Elemental. It is a tier 3 jungle item. There was it kind of branches more into specific magic power junglers. It's a more defined path now. And this is the tier 3. The item itself, okay, the item itself, your first spell will release a shockwave around the first enemy hit, dealing damage, and you restore mana based on how much damage you. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but useful in most scenarios.
And like you said, for Leah, there was no clear jungle item that she really wanted to take, and she is arguably our premier jungler in being a Sky Slayer. So having no item for her felt awful. So it's great to see that we're implementing new items for the characters that we have as well. I think this is a great item. She's super ability based, so it makes sense to have it based around her in that way. But yeah, overall, I think it's a great item that fits really well on those ability based junglers.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the last item was actually a recent add. It's going to be the most recent out of the 3. It's called Ring of Protection. It is another ring in the tree. It's the 4th. There was 3 in that tree as well, so now there's 4. It is a magical power armor item.
Okay.
That combination was missing from the game. There was no magical power armor item at all. So it was kind of like, well, do you want to protect yourself as Malaya as Noxus or not? Like, you either had to build tank or you didn't. So this kind of fills that. It's definitely needed. And what it does is every time you get basic attacked by an enemy, it reduces their attack speed by 1% for a duration. But if they keep attacking you, it's going to keep refreshing. So it requires them to leave and stop attacking you to get their attack speed back up.
Okay.
So it's pretty good.
And
good
like you said, it's a great, I mean, the passive literally is called defensive for a reason, right? It's meant to protect against Malaya, as my favorite character, from just jumping in on you and just wailing away because there's no real downside to attacking a Noxus sometimes.
Yeah.
You wait for
and
the
for
right
those
abilities
of you,
to come out.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Malaya is Noxus's biggest counter, so it kind of helps a bit.
Exactly.
The other thing to note that is not, I don't know if it's shown on stream or not, Ring of Protection, because it is a ring, it does have magical penetration.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of doing a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it's a great item overall, and even it's a good item on Iran, right? Being able to give Iran, who's kind of this AP bruiser tank hybrid, being able to give him ability power, pen, and armor on an item, it was perfect because it's something he wants all three of those things. And then he gets this passive to boot. And because he's short range, it helps him in his lane a ton as well. So it's going to be absolutely huge and crucial to have a lot of this item against certain combinations of myths. I can definitely see that. So the next
up. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Go ahead. No, I'm jumping the gun. Go ahead.
We want to talk about the myth update. So for those of you that don't know, if you're not part of the Patreon, the myth update dropped on the website today. So we're going to go over some of the changes that were made to myths during testing that helped kind of bring them in a more balanceable state and kind of keep them in line with everybody else. Starting off with probably the smallest changes will be to Leah. Leah's passive is the Heiress of the Jungle or Wisdom of Yahimi. And what it does is every 5 ability casts, she empowers her ability with an extra effect. So stacking that up was always a problem for Leah in early testing. Going into it, you basically had to use your entire ability roster to then get an empowered ability afterwards, which just felt terrible. But we wanted the empowered abilities to still be impactful, so we didn't want to lower the amount of stacks it takes to get that empowered ability. So what we did instead is added an effect to her Q, Galebound Thrust, which now for every enemy myth she hits with her Q, she gains an extra stack on her passive. So if she hits 4 enemy myths, she's got a fully stacked passive. The next ability she casts will be the empowered ability. So just real quick way to cycle through and get that passive up as quickly as possible, but still requiring some initiative from the Leah herself to get that done. It's not just inherently easier for her.
Yeah. And it's actually only 3 because you still get 1 from the cast of the Q itself.
Yeah.
So you get the cast from the Q, you hit 3 enemies, and you get a fully stacked passive right again. And her Q is a fairly low cooldown. So if you can consistently hit 3 people, you're going to consistently be getting passive.
Yeah, and that ability is fantastic, but her Q echoes itself in terms of its empowered version. Her E gives her a heal based on the number of enemies she hits with it, and her R gives her a shield based on the number of enemy myths she hits with it. So it kind of fits in line with that theme of however many people she hits, she gets a reward for at the same time.
Also, on a note real quick, the echo of the Q, the passive version of the Q, the little echo that comes out 1 second after, that does not get stacked. It's only the initial
cast of the ability.
Cast of the ability.
That makes sense.
I almost said something else entirely.
And then the second myth that we changed, and these are some pretty great changes, and I love Talos as well, so I loved these changes, is for Talos. And originally, Talos's basic attacks were just standard basic attacks. Then when he went into Frenzy, they cost stamina to use. So his right click is his Frenzy. He gains extra damage for a time, and his basic attacks cost stamina. We decided that didn't feel good because it made him either afraid to use his ability or out of stamina when it came time to use other abilities. So we kind of switched it up. The Frenzy no longer takes stamina, but instead landing successful basic attacks gives you stamina in general.
Just in general, not just during Frenzy. It's just all the time.
Yeah. So now you'll be able to kind of weave his basic attacks in between his other abilities in order to keep that stamina up and have them ready for those extra casts, especially with his combo abilities on his Q and his E.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we changed is his ultimate. Now his ultimate used to refund stamina for however many myths he hit. And honestly, it didn't help the problem of giving him enough stamina one way or the other. By the time you would use your ultimate in a ability combo, you would either have full stamina or have no stamina, and it would just feel bad either way. So with the change to his basic attacks, we decided to remove the stamina refund from his ultimate and instead give it some new effects. So the big things were that his ultimate now slows the enemy myths he hits by a percentage. So when he lands on enemies, they get slowed for a little while, giving him that chance to follow up with his other abilities or have his team follow up with themselves. And the big change is that when Talos uses his ultimate, he's now going to gain armor and magic resist, both flat and an additional amount based on however many passive stacks he has. So Talos' passive is Scavenging Huntsman. When he gets a kill or an assist on an enemy myth, he's going to earn armor and magic resist permanently and from that killer assist. What the ultimate does is it takes however many stacks of that Scavenging Huntsman he has and multiplies it. so he gains significantly more armor and magic resist for getting those kills and assists early on. So absolutely incredible ability, and turns Talos into a tank when he uses that ultimate, so he can get into battle and stay alive a little bit better than just going in and dying immediately.
Yeah. So far, super good reception and testing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fantastic ability since those changes have been implemented, and his stamina
phenomenal.
has felt really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Skifter, talk to us about
Talos.
Noxus, who had the most fundamental changes to her.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the most fundamental changes. She has a new special, completely different. It was give you cooldown and mana, reduced mana cost, and it gave you cooldown every time you hit an enemy. That became very problematic when you would root people with your Prisoning Radiance and then press R and hit everybody with a ton of Lightbound Portal projectiles. Unbalanceable, in fact. Fun fact. So we changed it. She channels the power of her orbs for 3 seconds at the start of the ability, and then for the following 6 seconds, she ends up dealing percentage bonus increased damage. Say that right? Either way, a lot of damage. And her abilities still get reduced mana cost during that time as well. This really feeds into her Burst Mage fantasy that we definitely want her to have, and not just be, constantly throwing abilities over time. Just throw them at once and you're good. This is definitely not meant to be used all the time. This is supposed to be kind of like a prediction thing. Like you are going to predict when you're going to need the damage and use it 3 seconds ahead of time. So you're not going to be going into a fight like at that moment looking to use this, and then in 3 seconds the team fight's over. That's a poor use of the ability. You want to predict when the team fight's going to start, and that's when you get the huge benefit from this ability in the percentage bonus damage on all your abilities. So
it'll basically make Noxus players have to engage on their own terms, right? It's not a reactionary ability. It's something that she has to prepare going in and make sure that she has up when the time comes.
Yeah, like if you're roaming and you're going to be, ganking somebody in somewhere else, or if you're invading the jungler and you know where they are, but they don't know where you are, and you're 3 seconds out, and then you start using this ability and then blow them up, because it doesn't change the way you play the kit at all. So that was the goal with that. Now let's talk about her Q. So before, her Q was you charge a beam for 3 seconds, you stand there, and just put DPS. Well, DPS does not equal burst, so we changed it. Now it has 3 charges. Basically, you start blast. You just blast out a beam of light. It deals a ton of damage, and you have 3 charges, and you gain them back over time. This feeds more into her burst fantasy, like I was talking about before. Yeah. So far, good perception on that ability as well. Now, the
like
quality...
you said,
go ahead.
It just didn't really fit in with... A long-range DPS beam on a burst mage doesn't really fit. So changing it to give her multiple stacks and let that be a quick blast of damage that she can use has been really beneficial, and I think really well loved and received by our testers as well.
Yeah, not just that, but it actually, against like Malaya and Leah and Talos and all the characters that have engage, having her slowed for that entire 3 seconds, unable to cancel, felt really, really bad. So we just have 3 charges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as some of you may know, her R, Lightbound Portal, she casts it, and it sends a bunch of bolts in a straight line. It doesn't do it in a straight line anymore. It's targeted now. So she targets a single enemy, and she starts shooting bolts at that one person. They are targeted. They can leave the range. Like, they do have a range. So if she is casting at max range, you walk straight back. You can get out of range. That is the biggest counterplay of the ability, is getting out of range and leaving the targeting radius area. The aspect of her R where you would root with Imprisoning Radiance and then cast the R and it would deal damage to all of the targets rooted, that still exists. So for example, if there's a wave of minions on your left and you root them all, and an enemy myth on your right, and you target them, that one myth with your R, the R will still divert and hit all of the rooted minions on your left as well as the myth on your right. So it will hit everybody, targeted and rooted. Or one or the other. You don't have to have either one.
Yeah, and this is actually, I love this purely from like a flashy standpoint, because the fadeaway lightbound portals that you can do on Noxus
Yep.
are incredible, because you just target somebody and just walk away where you know
See
you're
ya.
going to hear that in just a second, like that an enemy's been slain. Yes, they have. Thank you very much. No big deal. I guarantee highlight clips are going to come up of stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
where-
Fadeaways
of
for
the
sure.
fadeaway Noxus R's. It's going to be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So I guess there's something that some people are here for, the Grog Church, something among those lines.
Just weird people.
Yeah, I don't quite know, but we're going to talk, guys, about the next myth after the pre-alpha 7. And that is going to be Grog'Narc. So on screen, what you guys are going to see is the concept art for Grog'Narc's abilities. We're going to break down the kit for you, and then at the very end, we'll have a screen that'll explain the abilities all in one image. So to start, we have his passive.
I want to talk
Look
about
at
this.
all the
Really
Grog
don't.
Church. I love it. But so to start, we're going to have his passive. His
Can we
passive
skip the
is
passive?
strong as rock. And what this means is that he's going to be able to he's going to earn stacks over time of damage reduction. So he's going to get up to 5 stacks, and when he gets hit by an instance of damage, he'll lose 1 stack and then lower that damage reduction by a percentage. So he'll be able to constantly kind of be inherently tanky as part of his passive, and going through that will be able to keep other teammates alive by eating abilities and eating basic attacks as well. Now, there is a second part of the passive
Get
that
me out.
I love, and I know a bunch of you are about to love,
And
and
you're
that
gonna lose your
is
minds.
what I call rollout, and Grog'Narc will turn into a ball and be able to roll around the map. Now, there are a lot of additional parts of this.
A lot of additional parts.
And the big thing in rollout is that Grog'Narc can only roll to increase his movement speed. When he's on all fours, he will be very slow. He's a giant rock monster, of course, but this will be how you get around the map and traverse a little bit. As such as well, Grog'Narc will be unable to jump. So you'll be able to use rollout by pressing the spacebar, which is normally the jump key. This means that you will turn into the ball and go from there. You will not have a jump of any kind. In addition to that, because he's so heavy and is stuck on the ground, he will be unable to get knocked up as well. So Grog'Narc will be immune to knockups, which is going to be a whole great thing in terms of the abilities we have on the other pre-alpha 7. He'll be able to kind of negate some of those
Here comes
high some of those
He will
high
still take the damage from the abilities.
Yes, absolutely.
That is one thing to note. If Leah's tornado comes in, he will still take the damage from the tornado, but he's too thick to get knocked up from it. All right, chat? All right.
Grog too thick. I like it. Confirmed.
Grog too
Write it down.
Ship it.
Exactly. And we mentioned it a little bit earlier, guys, but his special ability, a big boulder, is
A
just like it
big
sounds.
boulder.
He will be ripping a boulder out of the ground and then will be able to toss it in a target direction. If it collides with enemy myths, it will stun them and deal magic damage. Now, of course, this is just like an ability we've seen from a previous game in Paragon. This will act almost identically to Rampage's boulder from Paragon. So he'll be able to do a long-range stun, and if you guys can land those crazy cross-map, cross-lane stuns from fire down to void, we want to
Down
see
into
it.
void, yep.
Yeah, it'll be incredible. We can't wait to see what you guys do with that as a whole. Skifter,
Now-
what's going on with his next ability, his one?
Well, hold on. You forgot the downside on the special.
I did. I forgot the downside on the special. Let's go back.
All right, back to the special. The downside to the special, because all our specials have a downside. The downside to the special, when you pick up the rock, you're slowed significant. After you throw it, then you will slowly start to gain your movements. So, slow Grog'Narc, toss, still slow Grog'Narc. To rolling fast Grog'Narc.
So like he said, is holding the rock, you lose a bunch of movement speed. It's a heavy rock. You're making yourself even heavier with it. And then you'll just gradually earn that back over time after the throw. So the downside is just a movement speed debuff, of course.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Now the
His one.
ability one. My
Now
bad, my
his
bad.
one. Okay. Lodestone. All right, so Grog'Narc will have rocks that revolve around him at all times. As you level up this ability, the rocks will populate more. Basically, if the rocks hit a myth, if they're in melee range and they hit you, they'll take magic damage. The myth that hits will take magic damage. They also block projectiles. So Nox is his ult, comes down. Grog'Narc has a lodestone, you're good to go. He doesn't, you're gonna get hurt. The other thing you could do is you can activate this ability to throw the rock. Just straight and forward, straight in front of you. Skill shot. Boom. Deal damage. So you kind of have to pick what you want to do. You want to use them for protection? You want to deal damage? Or do you want to get up in a myth's face and have them just deal damage without activating? There's a lot of different things you can do with this ability.
Yeah, and it's going to be great in conjunction with the passive we already know about of limiting some of that damage that you take, being able to block projectiles with these lodestones, but also use them offensively, gives Grog'Narc a lot of options in terms of how he's going to play, and gives you could go full magic damage Grog'Narc, or you could go full tank either way, and still have some options both directions.
Just start throwing all the ones, throwing all the lodestones, throw all of them, all 5. There we go.
Exactly. And another ability you guys can see on screen is Great Divide. So Great Divide is exactly what it looks like, is that you're going to be able to slam Grog'Narc's fist into the ground, and a huge wall will come up in front of you. Now, this can be used for a variety of things, right? He can go in, create the wall, and separate the enemy team from your team to help everybody get out. He can block off paths in the jungle. He can lift other allies or enemies into the air to block them. If you want an ally to get a vantage point like your marksman, you can cast the wall underneath them. They can stand on top of it, and then they got a little vantage point that it's harder to hit them from the enemy side, but they still have a good chance to hit enemies and do damage as well. So lots of good opportunity there to separate yourselves in different ways and create opportunities for your team to win. The other thing with this wall, though, is that all berserkers, including Grog'Narc himself, will be able to break the wall using their class ability. So for those of you that don't know, the berserker class ability is that they can destroy walls and terrain around the map. So this wall will be one of those destructible terrain that they can break down. So that's the direct counter to this ability, is if you have a berserker nearby and their class ability is up, you can walk up to the wall and knock it down to destroy or get rid of that spacing Grog'Narc's trying to create for him and his team.
Yeah, I love this ability. You can lift up an ally and put them next to a wall, and then they just jump on the other wall, and they have the whole Reaper path that they can go through.
Exactly.
And they're not even a Reaper.
Like little mini Reapers with Grog'Narc's help. All right, and then the next ability, Skifter, Massive Rupture. What is that going to do?
Yeah, so it's essentially going to be a ranged engage tool. He slams his fist in the ground and deals a bunch of damage in front of him, like a cone in front of him, and then towards the last few hundred units of the cone, all enemies that are there are going to get tossed back towards him. So it's good engage. He can be like, hey, no, you're not going anywhere. Come back here. And then he can put up a wall. Be like, yep, you're not going anywhere. So...
And like you said, it creates, again, even further opportunity for Grog'Narc and his team to set up some kind of unique engagement where he can single somebody out, put up a wall, and then that person has to rely on their team or their own ability to get in and out of those scenarios that Grog'Narc can put them in. And after all, he is intended to be the mainstay tank of Ethereal. So he's trying to live up to that opportunity to create CC moments for his team or pull people in, lock them down, the whole 9 yards.
All right, 2 questions from chat real quick before we do the ult.
Yeah.
Is he a mana character? Yes, he is a mana character. And the other one was from Sarity. Where was it? Oh, is the wall duration infinite or until someone breaks it, or is it on a timer? It is on a timer. And the width of the wall actually scales with the level, the rank of the ability. Rank of the ability. So it gets wider, and it does have a set duration.
So at the start of the game, it may not be very large, right? But by the time you get it to max level, that thing could cover some pretty decent path sizes in the jungle or in certain parts of lanes and things like that, creating a lot of zone denial for teams in terms of how big that wall gets, which is, we want you guys to be able to choose what ability to level up first, right? If you want to level up lodestones and do a little bit more damage, then great, you can do that. If you want a bigger wall to block off more paths, you should level that one first. And then if you want to use Massive Rupture to get those pulls in, lower cooldown, the whole 9 yards, then you want to be able to do that one first. That you can kind of have different play styles based on which ability you want to max first with Grog'Narc, which is super great.
For sure.
Then
now,
Grog'Narc's ultimate. Go ahead, Skip.
Okay. He's going to immobilize himself and start pounding on the ground. It's going to deal AoE damage around him to everything. It's going to deal damage to myths, minions, everything. It's going to be fairly low cooldown to allow him to reposition. and then recast it again. He is completely immobile. He can't do anything else. It will deal true damage to towers. So it's going to basically mitigate their resistances, allowing him to take towers pretty well. And it kind of acts as an area of denial for like assassins, because your carry can kind of just stand in the area, and Grog'Narc can just be like, hey, you really want to come in here? Because the other thing, while they're taking damage, enemies are also slowed. So an assassin jumps in onto your carry, and you just sit there and beat the ground, and now they're slowed and they're taking damage, and your carry can then kite them a lot easier while you're just sitting there tanking.
Yeah. And
you want to talk about the other part?
Even if they get the kill, if the assassin jumps in and manages to get the kill on your carry, them getting out is going to be significantly harder with the slow, the damage, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more likely to be a 1-for-1 trade if you have other members of your team nearby while Grog'Narc is just pounding on the ground with Lithoquake. The other thing that this does is it will reflect basic attack damage that is dealt to Grog'Narc. So passively, yes. So you will be able to, just by having the ability leveled, you're going to return some of the damage you received from basic attacks as magic damage to enemies. So like we said, with Grog'Narc being the mainstay tank in Ethereal, he wants to embody that as much as possible. So if an enemy carry is popping off, stick Grog'Narc between them, and Grog'Narc can mitigate a lot of that damage, return a lot of that damage, and then provide opportunities for his team to capitalize against that carry as well. So he's basically the anti-carry machine that he's built up to be. Rocks are very solid. Bullets don't go very far through them. Arrows, the whole 9 yards. So he is going to be a very rock solid creature in the game that helps keep his team alive, create opportunities for them, while also keeping himself alive at the same time.
A behemoth of a character, so
exactly. Great one, Skifter. But
Thanks.
Here, guys, you can see on screen all the abilities we just talked about. He will be a berserker, so you'll be able to see the passives, the actives, the whole 9 yards. So all of those are listed here for you. Strong as Rock, Big Boulder, Lodestones, Great Divide, Massive Rupture, and Lithoquake. Both of us are fired from Psionics. It's okay. It's okay. We'll be back, I'm sure. But guys, we've got 2 pretty special announcements for you still left in this community corner. Grog'Narc's kit, we hope you love. Please ask any questions you have about it. We're going to do another Q&A at the end of the community corner. But the big thing next we have is the Extra Life day that we're going to have next weekend. So November 6th, it's a Saturday at 12 p.m. Central. We're going to have a bunch of content creators join us. We're going to stream the game. We're going to be able to have Q&As with each of these creators for their communities and go through everything. Right now, we've got, I think it's 14 content creators confirmed to be joining us for Extra Life. We've got space for more. So if you guys are a content creator yourselves, or you know content creators that would love to join, have them reach out to me on Discord at UG Jellyknees on our Discord. I'm happy to talk to them, get them involved, or any of you if possible. But can't wait to have different varieties of gameplay from all these perspectives, hear their thoughts, get some feedback from them, of course, because we are still in a early pre-alpha state. So we're really excited for this event, guys. We'd love for you guys to support, and just, yeah, it'll be a great time for everyone involved. Skifter and I will both be playing with the content creators as well. Yeah. I'm sure Skifter's going to hide in bushes for the memes.
They're going to be all burned by then. They're going to be gone.
They're going to be gone. All right.
They're going to be gone. I'll burn them all.
Skifter, the next big thing, Extra Life is great. We're excited to have that happen. But I think a lot of people will be a little more excited about this next one. So go ahead and talk about it, Skifter.
All right. November 20th, Saturday. Stress test. We are going to have a break the game stress test. We are not going to give a time, or not, we're going to give a start time later, but we're not going to be like, hey, this is going to go for 2 a week. We're not going to give a deadline. We are going until we break the game. If the game breaks after 20 minutes, that's it. If the game breaks after an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, whatever it ends up being, we are confident in the game that we are ready to break it. So we need your help on Saturday, November 20th. It will probably be sometime in the morning. that it will start. That way, you know, we can get people slowly in. Jelly, you want to talk more about how that day is going to go?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with a small group of people, right? And I won't give it a number because we don't know what that number looks like yet. But we're going to start with a small group of people, and we're going to randomly select those people from our email registry on our website. So how you gain access is you make sure your email is included in that registry, and we'll go through and randomly select a certain amount of people, and then those people will be granted access to create an account and download the game. If we can get all of those people in the game and it's stable, then we want to increase that. So if we get 100 people in, it sounds good, it's all working great, and we got games going, then bam, we'll increase that number. Then we'll send out a whole list of invites. Then if that's still good, we'll send out a whole list of more invites. What we're trying to do, guys, if we want to see where we struggle on in terms of our back end, in terms of account creation, the servers, the game itself, all of these things. We want to, but prior to the pre-alpha, show you guys what we have, as well as get a lot of that feedback of where we need improvement as well. So like we said before, this is intended to help us break the game in some way, right? If something breaks, that is great news for us, because then when pre-alpha comes out, that thing will be fixed and we can go forward without that being an issue. The question I'm seeing pop out
It's everywhere
all over in chat is if this is only in the US. No, it is not. This stress test will be available to the US, so NA and EU. Those will be the two regions we're mainly focusing on for this test. So if you guys want to participate, make sure your email is in that registry. The next thing I have, though, is that those of you that are subscribed to our Patreon, we want to reward you guys for supporting the game and the development of the game like you have been the last month. Those of you in the Patreon will get first crack at those accounts. So we've got right now 55 people in our Patreon. Those 55 will be the first ones to get emails for the stress test. They'll be the ones to be able to create their account and go through everything. And once we go through that list of the patrons, then we'll start going out into that email registry that we talked about. Now, the good thing about this is you can be in any tier of the Patreon. You could be the $5 tier. You could be the $100 tier. Any of those tiers give you that premier, like, front of the line pass to the stress test. Yep. So it doesn't matter, any tier, $5 to $100, you get that front of the line access to the stress test as well, because we want to reward you guys for helping us so much, because we really appreciate it.
Yeah. And you can still sign up between now and then, still get that direct access.
Absolutely. It's not just who's ever there right now. Up until the stress test and those emails start going out, that's what you can sign up till that point and get access to those stress tests as well. But guys, like I said, join the Patreon if you want that guaranteed access to the stress test. And then if not, make sure you're signed up for that email registry. The links to Patreon and our website are both in the description down below. There are links to take you to both places. You can sign up at those. And we're excited to have you guys there, because it should be a great time overall, right? We're excited to show you guys what we have. We're excited to find out what we can improve on and do this all before we have that pre-alpha launch, so we have an idea going in of what we can expect. But guys, that's all we have for the community corner itself. We're going to jump back into some Q&A for you and answer more of the questions you guys have been asking throughout this. We've had people documenting these questions for us the whole time.
Yeah,
so
I got one.
Go through for you. Yeah, go ahead, Skifter.
Okay, one of the questions earlier was, does Grog'Narc's ult tremble or just slow? It just slows. It doesn't go crazy. It's just a simple slow. Doesn't make your camera go crazy. The other question that was asked right after was, how big is it? It's not massive, but it's not tiny. It's kind of mid-range. Like it'll fit a few myths, you know?
And then the bounty system, like in League, I know we've seen questions about that in the past. Bounty system does exist in Ethereal. The more kills you get, the more you're worth if you get killed, and the more times you die, the less you're worth if you get killed. So it will definitely be helpful in engaging and keeping those comeback mechanics alive in the game.
For sure. So
Skifter, the mini map, will it show all the lanes? Will it just be the one you're on? How is the mini map going to work?
So the minimap is going to be in 3 pieces, kind of layered-ish, but it'll be the lane you're on, but you can switch to other lanes. So right now it's like 3, 4, 5 in the scroll wheel. Both options will take you to other lanes. 3, 4, 5 is directly tied to each lane, and the scroll wheel will take you back and forth. When you go through a teleporter, it'll automatically take you to that lane. Or if you go, like if you fly from void to fire, it'll automatically switch to fire when you get there. And then, so basically, whenever you get to lane, it'll automatically switch, but you can switch back and forth freely whenever you want.
And so far in our testing with the minimap, there's a little bit of curve in learning how to switch it and get used to checking other lanes. But once you get used to it, it's pretty intuitive that you can pick it up and use the minimap effectively very quickly.
And it works with you. Like if you jump from a lane to a lane, it's like, oh, here you go. Here's where you are. So it's very intuitive. It very, very well works in terms of the players, for the players.
And I love Hammer in here. What a bummer if I get sick from school on the 20th. I think, I might, I think I'm getting sick too. I'm going to have to not be at work that day.
Another call out to work. Sorry, Owen.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Owen. Yeah.
Sorry.
And then another one. Is a die system still planned for Ethereal? If so, can we get any information on how that die system is going to work? The answer is right now we don't have a lot of information to give about a die system for the game. It's something we would like to implement, but it's going to be later down the road because of we want to make sure the gameplay is all there first. We want to make sure we get a good solid roster in there and then implement some of the extra cosmetic systems as well.
But it is coming. It is still in the plan.
Absolutely.
It has not been thrown away at all.
All right. And then the limited edition shirts. Yes, those are still going to be a thing. When we launch our storefront later on, exactly that shirt. I love that shirt. When we launch our storefront later on, probably with the pre-alpha, then some of those limited edition shirts will be available for you guys to purchase, as well as the other different things in there, shirts, posters, metal prints, the whole 9 yards. We're going to have plenty of options for you guys when that launches. Let's see. We got a bunch of questions in the chat here. Can we get a Kalia Nico knee taunt in game? Yes or no? I would love that, but that's a whole that we're gonna have to get down the line in terms of what the VGS system looks like before we can get that in there. All right, Skipper, you got a question?
Yeah, I got one. Does UG have a number of myths they want to have for beta? There is not a hard set number. And I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but Grog'Narc. Our plan currently is to release Grog'Narc about a month after the game's release. I'm not going to give a hard set like it will be a month. Might be 3 weeks. It might be 6. But it will be roughly a month after. We want the game to be stable before we introduce new characters. So Grog'Narc will be about a month. That's how long we expect the settle down to happen with like bugs and any crashes and all that stuff to really get weeded out. And then we'll start introducing Grog'Narc and into the other phase 2.
Yeah. And guys, we want to release these myths to you as fast as possible, right? But we have to take into account their balancing, their bugs, any animations that we need for them, all of those things. They have to be ready to go before we can give them to you. But I guarantee you that the second we feel comfortable pushing these myths out to you, we're gonna do it as fast as possible. We're gonna get these guys out to you as quickly as possible. Can Grog'Narc lift himself with his wall? So can he cast it underneath him?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're going to see Reaper Grog'Narc. He's going to lift himself up, run along the top of the wall, roll along the top of the walls. Sorry. Roll. We roll.
Watch yourself, Jelly.
I know. My bad.
We out here rolling.
All right. And then Ethereal when? We talked about that already. Right? You're going to have the stress test on November 20th, and then we're still on track for December pre-alpha release. So still 2021 as well. As for adding more rewards to the Patreon, that's a great question. We've already seen some people get to the maximum $800 of the cumulative rewards, which thank you guys. We appreciate that so much. It's ridiculous. There is always the opportunity to add more tiers to that Patreon, especially now seeing that some of you have already reached that max tier. Maybe we'll include a $1,000 tier or something with those cumulative rewards where we can do more for you, but I can't give any details of what that looks like as of right now.
Will the stress test be streamable by creators?
Yes. So the stress test the Extra Life test next weekend will be the first opportunity for other people to stream the game in those content creators. And the stress test afterwards, anyone that gets in will be allowed to stream the game to their communities. So honestly, we endorse it because we want to see your experiences. We want to hear your thoughts about the game, your community's reactions. The more feedback we can get, the better, right? The more people we can get involved in breaking the game and getting feedback on the game, the better it is, and the better the game will be into that pre-alpha and future phases as well. When can you register for the stress test? Right now. You go down below. There's the website for the Patreon or the link for our website. Register. If you click the register in the top right corner, it takes you down to an email section. Make sure your email is entered. If you've already entered before, it will tell you that you've already been in, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can do it right now. And up until basically the 19th of November, we're going to be looking at all of those emails and then randomly selecting people to go through. And Wardance just actually posted a link to our website in the Twitch chat as well. So there's another opportunity for you to grab it and get registered for it. All right. And then let's see, Skifter. Will UG be letting us know coming close to the end of 2021 if pre-alpha is going to meet the goal of release? Yes. We've already talked about that a little bit. Of pre-alpha will be in December still. We don't have an exact date for you yet. The stress test will kind of help solidify what that date is going to be once we see what happens there. But we'll be able to go forward from there and give you guys a more exact date after that stress test. All right. And then will some skins in Ethereal change the look of abilities? Skifter, you want to talk about our different skin tiers a little bit there?
So yeah, we have 4 or 5 different tiers of skin, something like that. The visual effects on 2. Is it 2, Jelly?
Visual effects will change on tier 3 and 4. So yes. So 2 sets.
Okay. So the upper tiers, then they'll get different visual effects. Yeah.
So yeah.
And the first one you see is the Dante skin, the Ronin Dante. Or not the Ronin Dante, the Bloodshot Dante, sorry.
Bloodshot Dante, yes.
Bloodshot Dante will have red
is in
visual
our
effects.
Patreon. So if you want to get that skin, join the Patreon. But yeah, so we'll have different tiers of skins. Some will have different levels of changes. So your tier 1s are kind of your basic skins. Your tier 2s will be a little bit more than that, give you some slightly different effects and things like that. 3s will be voice line changes. And then we've got a tier 4 that will have some pretty massive changes for sure. All right. And let's see what other questions we got here, guys. Will Bleed use all of Grog's passive stacks? That's a great question. So
no.
Okay.
Any damage over time effect will take 1. So any sort of bleed from Talos or Malaya will take 1. So if Malaya has her bleed and she auto attacks Grog'Narc 5 times, then it will take 5 stacks. If she just hits once and 5 ticks of damage go through, it's only going to take 1.
So how will that work with if Malaya basic attacks and applies a bleed? Will the basic and the bleed apply 1? So will it be 2 total, or will it just be the basic attack?
It'll just be 1 from the initial ability.
Okay.
The initial attack or ability, whatever, basic attack or ability.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Still planning on allowing everyone in by the end of the year. Yes, the pre-alpha will be launching, and that'll be everyone that has pre-alpha access via the Patreon, or if they buy a key later on, they will be able to access that pre-alpha.
Quick update on the radius on Grog'Narc's ult.
Mm-hmm.
It's not massive. It's bigger than he is. It can encompass a couple minutes, but it's not massive and it's not itty bitty that are useless. It'll be balanced. Like we'll play it by ear and balance it before release for sure. Definitely not lane wide. Sorry, but
will Ethereal be an open beta like how Smite was in the beginning? And other MOBAs have done this as well. Smite is just the most played to the person who asked the question. Right now, we don't have details on if it's going to be open beta or not. It'll really depend on where we're at in terms of development. But we always will be looking to get Ethereal in as many hands as possible. So if that's something we feel like we can support and do, we absolutely want to push toward that goal, if at all possible. All right, guys. Well, that is all the questions we've had so far. If there's any questions you guys have, please go ahead and get in there. Is it still possible to have a tier to create a myth in the Patreon? Right now it is not, but that is one of those that we can explore with those cumulative rewards to see about getting people in to create their own myth, create their own skin, all of those good stuff.
If you...
Go ahead.
Never mind.
Bearded has a great question. If you're a part of the Extra Life event, do you still need to register? I would say that no, you do not. If you're a content creator that is going to be in our Extra Life event, we will reach out to you and talk to you about getting you into that stress test as well and work on those details with you. So go ahead and send us a message and we'll get that worked out with you as well.
Dorman out here asking the real questions. When's the second new myth?
That is the real question. And we don't know. We're not going to tell you right now. We already talked about Grog'Narc today. So you have to
like Grog'Narc.
Maybe to future community corners, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to hear about the next myths going forward, guys. But that is all the time we have for the community corner today. We appreciate you guys for coming out so much. We're going to be giving more details about everything in the coming weeks as well. We've got Grog'Narc you guys saw there. We'll be posting more of his information on the website, so you can look over that. And we're going to go through and give you guys as many updates as possible throughout everything and get you guys in as much as possible as well. Skipter and I will be in the chat for a little while longer, that if you guys come up with more questions, we can answer some of those in the chat. But for now, guys, we appreciate you so much for being a part of our community and helping us make Ethereal as great as it can be. And we'll talk to you again soon.